Welcome to the Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Andy. Felt like we just did this.
It does feel like that, in large part because we did.
Indeed.
We just got done talking about Snatch, and now we are staying in the year 2000 for the 25th anniversary of the movie Traffic. Andy, you chose for us to revisit the movie Traffic. I was very happy about it because it was my second choice.
Yeah.
What made you choose Traffic?
I think largely in part because we just had a Soderberg discussion a couple weeks ago when we did Black Bag. And I was like, Soderberg, just awesome. And we talked about what an insane, like 2000 to 2001 that he had doing Traffic and Aaron Brockovich in the same year. And then following that up with Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
That's insane. That is insane. That is an unbelievable 3-movie run that I don't feel like is talked about enough. I remember there was some, is it going to win Best Picture? Is it, there was some Oscar. They just had a lot of talk about it. And then what really pushed me over the edge was, and I thought I remember this right, but checking the box office, this movie made over $200 million.
Yeah.
And I was like, this movie felt like it should, I don't mean that because of the quality of the movie. Like, I thought, you would think like hopefully this is like a $40, $50 million movie. Like, no, this movie is, pretty heavy and not at all, like Snatch that we just talked about is just pure entertainment.
Right.
This is not, and for this movie to have found an audience is like, man, this movie is worth a revisit and it's worth a conversation.
Yeah. There are very few movies that I can think of that take themselves this seriously and work this well.
Yeah.
It's almost always like movies that take themselves this seriously,
It
especially
just
that get
gets
like critical
overbearing.
love. Yeah, you look back at it after a few years and you're like, like that movie. I mean, Crash, just a few years later,
Probably
winning
the best
Picture,
example.
that took itself very seriously. Now people look back and they kind of make fun of it and they're like, that movie just was so,
Preachy and
just had its head up in the cloud. I don't know, just. And this movie just manages not to be that somehow.
yeah.
And it's probably Soderberg. Soderberg
It's
is a
Soderbergh.
very grounded individual, I should say, like as far as he likes to do very grassroots things. We talked about it. He's an indie filmmaker. He doesn't like to do very Hollywood things.
Nope.
And that's usually where those self-serious things go wrong, is they try to be self-serious and very Hollywood, and he's not going to get caught up in that.
Nope.
And so he made a movie that felt much more authentic and real.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we will get into all of that. Just a quick summary again, hard one to summarize. Share some things in common with Snatch in that it's a lot of different characters with intertwining
Big
stories.
ensemble.
Another one where I guess you would say, that Michael Douglas's character is the main character.
I would say so, yeah.
But this one actually opens and closes with Benicio Del Toro, who won an Oscar for Best Supporting.
Yeah.
Which I was all for, but I'm watching going like, I guess he's supporting. He's,
I guess, this is one of those movies where really, I guess, everyone is just supporting.
Yeah, almost everyone could be supporting, but Michael Douglas was definitely the biggest name in the movie at the time.
Yeah.
And, so he's kind of on the poster most prominently, I guess. It's a bunch of heads and his most central and highest, I think.
Yeah.
But this is about just the drug war from all sides. So it shows it from the police and the gangs, it shows it from the politicians, and it shows it from like the families and how they all affect each other, essentially.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And does not have, one of the things I love about it, I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, it doesn't have like a Hollywood ending. It's not, and then, this is
everything just worked out
This is how
great.
everything is turning out good, or don't worry, audience, because, it's not even necessarily a downer ending. It's just kind of like
it's
shows
a
you this
real
is,
ending.
Yeah, this is just like we started here and we ended here. We're not really in down or up.
We're still fighting the battle, kind of. Yeah,
it's just this is what it is.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. This movie, I think, is really smart.
Yeah.
I should have the writer's name in front of me. I don't. It was adapted
Steven
from
Gagan or something like
that I knew I was going to have a hard time pronouncing, not knowing exactly where to put how that was pronounced.
I think he's written a couple things for Spielberg. Like, he's prominent.
Yeah.
But
it's a really good script.
It really is.
And I think I talked before about in our Val Kilmer tribute thing, that Doc Holliday is my favorite character of all time. And I referenced that I had done a list of my favorite characters. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but top 5 was Javier Rodriguez, which is Benicio Del Toro's character in this movie. His character is so cool, and it's like very different than most cool characters. You know, it's not flashy. It's not Brad Pitt in Snatch.
No.
He plays this very like subtle, I'm kind of in control. I'm
Quiet.
smarter. I'm smarter than people think, but I know how to keep quiet and not draw attention to myself.
Yep.
I will say, watching it again this time, I was like, it's a complex character because
it's really complex.
Because he doesn't say a lot. You have to kind of guess like when he's, you know, what his motivations are. He's kind of with the bad guys for a little while, but he kind of knows it. But it's like, is this the necessary evil he has to do, or is he actually kind of like, yeah, I might as well just kind of roll with them?
Yeah,
and it doesn't really say.
No, this movie is not interested in spelling everything out for you.
Not at all.
No,
which is a nice thing.
It's really nice.
There's not a lot of comedy in this movie. I'll say that.
I did not laugh a lot watching this movie.
There is subtle humor, though, that I think I appreciate much more as an adult than as a kid. Like the scene where Michael Douglas is meeting all the political people, and the guy tells him, he said, everybody's going to ask you one question. It's designed for one thing, to make them sound smart. And then it shows you that scene, and they're all saying things to him, and just his like eye rollingness. Like, I knew it was supposed to be a little funny as a kid, but I think as an adult, I more so think it's funny that
I
all
didn't
these people,
think about that.
you know, like, not laugh out loud, but it's just kind of like a little satirical.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the scene of all the teenagers hanging out and just the way they talk.
Oh, yeah.
And great job of capturing like what teenagers talk like, where like the ideas they have to them are like so big and profound because it's the first time they're thinking of them, but they don't realize it's like very common, generic.
Yeah, you're right. They
like,
do
not
such
very
a good
smart.
job.
And so like as an adult, you're like, it's kind of funny, even though it's this tragic scene of teenagers resorting to drugs and all of that. But the way they talk is kind of funny.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's, again, going back to just the cleverness of the writing and all of that. And then there's good little banter sometimes between like Don Cheadle and Luis Guzman. Like, Guzman's hilarious, you know.
He's just awesome in general.
Great.
He's just underrated as an actor.
Cheadle has great reactions too every time Guzman
Cheadle's
like slips
really
one
good in this
in.
movie.
They do the one thing where they're betting at one point and they're like exchanging money, and Guzman's like, yeah, so just give me a 10 back, and he hands it to him, and then he hits him like, wait, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense that I just gave you $10.
Yeah.
Or when Cheadle says, you know, I lost my virginity on a beach like this, and Guzman just, was he good to you? And he just, moments like that. Where really,
there are some good moments.
Some great relief in this very heavy movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where I want to go with this because so much goes on in this movie. We're not going to sit there and break down everything.
There's a lot
happens.
going on. I mean, I think one thing that's super important to talk about is what a great idea. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the best ideas. And for Soderbergh to come up with the idea to use the different color.
The color grading. Yeah.
Grading. That's the word I want. The different color grading for the different stories.
Yeah.
What a smart idea. Like I said, sometimes the simplest ideas are the best ideas. And that instantly saves you the trouble as an audience of just having to work all this story out in your brain, or like, okay, now I've got to shift back to here with these characters. The color grading does that for you.
Yeah.
And that I was really curious to rewatch this and see how that would age. I thought it aged fantastically.
Yeah, I did too. And talk about another thing I said with Snatch, the opening title credits and the freeze frames was something I wanted to rip off so much when I was younger. That color grading thing, I remember doing a student film and then like helping a friend edit it, and afterwards I went back and re-edited it in my version, and I color graded everything like that. And I was like, I was just ripping off Traffic, but it was just such a like influential one to me that I did that.
And too, like not only just for to follow the story, but every color they choose looks great, and it makes everything has its own unique look to it.
Yeah. So all of the like Washington D.C. government stuff with Michael Douglas is hued blue, which kind of gives you this like cold,
very like
icy
politician-y.
Yes. Yeah. And then in Mexico, it's all very yellow and it's very bright and like looks, kind of gives you the like it's hot and
I was gonna say that it makes you just like want to start sweating.
And that's something about this movie is and I think it kind of goes back to Soderbergh liking to use very basic stuff. Like he uses a lot of like handheld cameras and stuff in this. We talked about with Woman in the Yard or movies getting very clean looking. This movie is not a clean looking
not
movie.
At all.
It is grainy and it serves it very well. Like
very, very well.
Those scenes with Benicio Del Toro, like it's funny because when I'm getting ready for these episodes and I'm trying to do some of the prep beforehand, you know, and like I want to steal some like photos of the characters and put them on the background for our opening. You can't find like a good, clear, crisp picture of Del Toro because it's all like, I'm like, it's going to look so weird and grainy and yellow. But it serves the story so well. Like it is
so well. And that just aged fantastic, like I said.
Yeah. There's not a distinct score with this. It is a movie with a score, but it's very it's a very subtle score.
Very subtle.
That you don't think about very often. Like if you ask me like, hey, how does the score to Traffic go? I have no idea.
I don't know. But I'll tell you what, rewatching it, I loved the way they ended this movie and just that kind of just like haunting music that's playing.
That's exactly what I was thinking
that's
of.
Unbelievable. That literally gave me goosebumps. Like I don't know how to even articulate it. It was just the perfect way to end that movie with the baseball game going on and Benicio Del Toro sitting there, not looking defeated necessarily, but just like you can tell he's got a weight on his shoulders and he's just trying to kind of like unwind and watch this baseball game. And I even read stuff from people who are smarter than I am that was like, it was like the contrast between baseball being the old national pastime and drug use becoming the new national. And I'm like,
that's the sort of stuff I never.
As usual, people are so much smarter than I am.
I never draw those conclusions, but I mean, but it also just goes back to why he's such a cool character because he's just sitting there watching the game quietly on his own, not bringing any attention to the fact that, hey, you know what? There's lights out here because I did my job and made a deal and got you these lights.
And he just kind of watching the game. And like I said, maybe I just read it this way, but still kind of conveying just the weight of everything that's going on. And also, I don't know, it's stuff like that where he's just literally doing nothing. Be like, I'm so glad he won the Oscar for this movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, that score is amazing.
Yeah, Del Toro is a guy who had been around for a little while, done parts. He's in Usual Suspects and some other things. This is the first one where I was like, man, like
this guy's good.
What he could do was so little.
Yeah,
like it's the first time I realized, like, man, he's got a face that just lends itself to like a lot going on the interior.
There's a lot going on. Yep.
Without saying much,
overacting it, or doing this kind of stuff. Like he's really good.
Yeah.
And I think another big thing with this movie too is just like you talked about, like with something like Crash. Rewatching this movie this time, I think this movie is not really pushing an agenda at all. Like it's not pro-drug, but it's just kind of like everything's just unfolding. It's almost like, and I don't know this, I should have researched. I feel like Soderbergh had to have had almost like a documentary type influence for this.
Yeah.
Where it's like these events are just kind of unfolding in front of you.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite bits of trivia from this movie is at the scenes at the border where Michael Douglas goes to visit the border with all the where the car's going through. It was at an actual border thing, and at the time, it wasn't even they were supposed to be filming a scene. They were literally just the guy who was showing them around is the actual guy working there, was kind of giving them a tour. And Soderbergh started filming with his handheld.
That doesn't surprise me
at all. And it said he was just praying the guy wasn't going to say Mr. Douglas while talking to and ruin the take. And so, like, you hear that and go, that makes sense because it felt very real and legitimate. And Michael Douglas was literally just like talking to the guy. Didn't even realize he was in character.
That's awesome.
So,
and I think that's a big thing that separates this movie from being something like Crash, where it's just so like heavy-handed and preachy, or maybe preachy is not even the right word. I don't know. Just very like in your face with its agenda.
It has a message.
Yeah.
A movie like Crash wants to say we're portraying the bad thing, but we need to portray it in a way that the filmmakers aren't part of that bad thing. Like we're showing you what a bad thing is. We're above it.
Mm-hmm.
Traffic, not it's like there's no side. He's not taking a side.
Here is what the drug war or culture looks like.
I think you can certainly, like, different people could latch on to different characters more or identify with them. I think people probably recognize different characters in this from people that they've known, like the so there's another bit of my favorite trivia, the daughter
Erica Christensen,
who really seemed like she was going to be a thing there for a minute.
Dude, I thought she was phenomenal in this movie.
She's really good in this movie. She did this, and then she was in Swim
Fan,
Fan,
which kind of had that was like a small hit.
Yeah, and then she just kind of disappeared.
So I checked on before I came over here. Like, she's worked somewhat steady, but she never ascended into like the A list, or maybe not even the B list. But she's so good in this movie, I thought. And I was thinking, like, you would think it has to be hard to play like strung out, where you're kind of just, like sitting there, and it's like she does that so well and so convincingly.
She does. So she obviously is probably the character you're supposed to like feel the most for.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one. I mean, several characters are going through it, but she's. I guess it is sort of self-inflicted, but all the other ones are adults. They're police, they're politicians. It's just a kid.
Yeah.
Who's getting it. But I was saying one of my favorite bits of trivia was there's a scene where she's meeting with the counselor, who's played by Viola Davis, which is wild. There's a couple of smaller bit parts in this that nowadays I'm looking at going like, oh my gosh, that person's huge now.
Yeah.
So Viola Davis is, asking about all the stuff she's involved in, all her activities, and she's listing off all his credentials. She's like the perfect student. And it ends with, so what are you doing here? You want to tell me what you're doing here? And apparently some critics were like a little critical of that scene. Like, yeah, you went overboard with that. Why was the perfect student? She really had that resume doing drugs. And the writer's comeback was, that was actually my school resume, and I was doing drugs. So
yeah,
go ahead and tell me that's not real.
Right. Yeah, and her and Douglas together. I just like there's those are the two that really, really stood out to me this time. I thought they were so good. I love the scene of her and Douglas and his wife together in I guess rehab, right? And like she has to stand up and go into your thing of like this movie doesn't, not necessarily a downer ending, but it doesn't just make it like everything's great. Like she's which I thought she just shined in the scene where she's like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to make it through today.
Yeah. When she says, I'm pretty sure I'm going to make it, as a moviegoer, you're thinking she's just going to make it. And she says through today, you're like, yeah, I guess that's.
But it's such I've never been a drug addict, but it's like, it feels like a really honest portrayal where it's like, I'm not just magically cured. And this isn't just like, well, I was on drugs, but now I'm not. Like, they do such a good job of showing that realism with, like I said, without it being this big, flashy, they don't cut to Douglas with tears rolling down his eyes. And then he gets up and he's phenomenal too, where he says, I'm just here to listen.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, that is so good.
And I think that's the last
and then it cuts to Del Toro
in the movie, because it's just Del Toro at the baseball game watching, and you hear people like cheering, whatever, but there's no dialogue, and then it's credits.
Man, that was like that last 5 minutes, I was like, nailed it. Like they were nailing it the whole movie. They didn't have to win me over or anything, but that I was like, this is why I loved this movie so much back in the day, and I still love it now.
Yeah. The movie is more tightly woven than I even realized rewatching it, because there is so much going on from the trial with obviously you got the two cops in Cheadle and Guzman.
Yeah.
You've got Catherine Zeta-Jones as being the wife.
Yeah.
And I don't think I always, when I was younger, connected them to the gang that the General Salazar was going against with Benicio. Like, I don't think I've quite connected that.
Everything's kind of,
I knew
intertwined.
They were all connected, but it felt looser when I was younger. And now that I'm older, like seeing just how closely connected it is. I think I totally missed when I was younger that Michael Douglas was talking about creating the position like his in Mexico, and he chose Salazar as that guy. And then when he's taken down, like I just kind of missed a lot of those little things when I was younger that I didn't realize, like, this is so much tighter connected than I initially realized, which is really cool.
It is really cool, and that goes to what we talk about, we talk about on this one here a lot. We like it when movies treat us like we are smart and we can piece all this together. Yeah. It doesn't point all these things out to you. You just have to figure it out.
Right. I do want to throw out, I love Topher Grace being in this movie just because it is like prime. He's huge for that 70s show. And this is him going like,
he's just a scumbag, basically.
You want to be the exact opposite of the lovable Eric Foreman. I'm going to be, I'm the worst in this one.
And kudos to Topher Grace. He pulls that off really well.
He does. We talked about it in the flight risk.
Flight Risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still don't know the name of that movie.
I think I'm going to mess it up every time.
Yeah.
That Topher Grace is just a good actor.
He's good.
And it was,
Same in this too.
Yeah. And again, really funny with the typical teenager stuff. Like he just thinks he's so smart.
Oh my gosh. You're right. They handle that really well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is, and I would love to see like what was on the page versus what actually was shown. Nothing indicates to me that it was like heavily improvised or anything, but just because every element of it felt very real, it felt the politicians sounded like politicians to me. The teenagers sounded like teenagers. The
cops sounded like cops.
Like everybody just felt very genuine.
Yeah, they really did. I don't know this either, but I would not be surprised if Soderbergh was open to improvisation. He's I think pretty on record saying he does not mind that stuff, but I don't know if it was the case for this movie.
I do think one impactful scene that probably didn't think very much of when I was younger, again, is they're on the plane after visiting Mexico, and Michael Douglas' character is like, all right, just for this flight, we're open to any ideas, throw them out there. What are we going to do? And just the fact that like nobody had any ideas.
Yeah.
And it was kind of pointing out like, that's kind of where we are. Like nobody really knows what to do about this.
Yeah.
So even on a flight where you're with the supposed experts and you're saying throw everything, we're open to all and any outside the box ideas.
Let's brainstorm. And then nothing.
Like one guy says one thing that's kind of generic about like the DEA, and then he's like, I want to hear from everybody, and everyone's just kind of sitting there like, nothing.
Yeah. It just felt to me like we were watching like every scene. You're like, man, that hit. Like that scene landed like they wanted it to. On to the next scene. That scene landed. Like it's just one good scene after another. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to keep breaking down like all the different little variations of great scenes and stuff, but I guess I did want to ask this. I was thinking about this when watching it. Like I said, Michael Douglas was probably the biggest star at the time. I mean, what else did Michael Douglas do after this? It felt like kind of close to the end of his run, though. Like, I don't know.
Oh, man. I'm trying to think.
Why Michael Douglas, not long after this.
You
look back and it's almost weird to say Michael Douglas is the biggest star. Like, Del Toro now is such a bigger star than people think of Douglas being. But
I think it's just time. Douglas, they talk about this a lot on the rewatchables. Douglas had this insane run from like 84 basically all the way through 2000, where not every single thing was a hit, but it was like Wall Street, he wins an Oscar. Fatal Attraction, which is like this phenomenon and one of the highest grossing movies of the year. Basic Instinct, which whatever you think about that movie, was a phenomenon that made a ton of money. Earlier I back it up, he did like Romancing the Stone. Like he was big for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And I don't think it wasn't like, oh man, now he's just making these awful movies. I think just time, and he just kind of started gradually fading out of that spotlight a little bit. I don't even remember what his IMDb's like after this. I mean, I know he did like that Thriller with like Brittany Murphy, and that I think had some, I think that did okay. I mean, I think there's still some decent stuff, but it's just not like high profile hit after high profile hit like it was for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's just the weird thing to me is like watching this is like he's still really good.
He's so good in this movie.
So after this one, he was in One Night at McCool's.
Don't even know what that is.
I vaguely remember the name, but I don't know it. Don't Say a Word was that movie with. Yeah. And then what was he? It Runs in the Family is a movie I actually did see because it had like him, his dad, and his son all starring in it as, multiple generations. Wasn't. Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking for he pops up in You, Me, and Dupree.
Oh,
I don't know. And
so you're right.
It's like he just moves into like these weird like cameos
and then finally lands in the MCU for a little bit. And, now at his age, I just don't know that he's going to have some big. But like I said, don't sleep on that run from like 80. I think Romancing the Stone's like 84. I mean, he was an A-lister for a long time.
Romancing the Stone was 84. You're so good at that.
Oh, thanks. I think he could have. I wouldn't have had a problem at all with him getting an Oscar nomination for this movie.
Yeah.
I just think the trouble comes in, like we talked about, actor versus supporting actor.
Right.
But he just carries such a weight in this movie and has such a presence, and he's using his movie stardom in the perfect way in this movie, I think, where he is this powerful presence and you've got this history with him, but he's not trying to like take over, you know, just kind of like we talked about with Brad Pitt and Snatch. He's not trying to take this over and make it a Michael Douglas movie.
Yeah, it's. I did also read in the trivia that he initially turned this part down.
Really?
And then Soderbergh actually offered it to Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford accepted it.
Oh, wow.
And they kind of worked together to make the character a little better. And then Harrison Ford had to drop out, and Douglas saw the character changes they made and liked it better and decided to do it.
Nice.
It's always, you know.
Yeah, it would have been really interesting to see Harrison Ford in it and think of Harrison Ford and Soderbergh working together, but I don't know. To me, just when, like I said, when Douglas hits that, you know, I'm just here to listen. You're just like, whoa, man, Michael Douglas, that was so well done.
I think there's also something to when you are a movie person like us and you kind of know a person's like IMDb and their history. There was something about Michael Douglas being like the super straight-laced dad type in this movie. That's kind of, I don't know, not funny or something. You know, like he played more like eccentric, wild characters.
Oh,
either
yeah.
Like guy out in the wild.
And here he's just a
and
dad.
He is, yeah, so like.
Yeah. And he's like the
straight-laced.
perfect age where like when he's kind of like in the streets looking, trying to track down Erica, his daughter, like he's old enough that it's like he seems kind of lost and not confused, but just kind of, someone please help me. Like I'm trying to find my kid and all that stuff. And he's really, really great in this.
Yeah.
Did this lose Best Picture to Gladiator? Is that what happened in 2000? Do you have that?
I was just about to try to pull that up because I was trying to remember what won.
So Soderbergh did win director.
Soderbergh won director.
But
for this.
If I'm remembering right, it did not win picture.
It did not win picture. I know that for a fact.
I hope it's not. He didn't lose to Gladiator.
Let me see.
I fear he might have, though.
Pulling it up right now. Well, first off, I'll say this. The nominees for... Oh, that's not the right year. How did I get this year? This is great podcasting now. As I'm
everyone
slowly trying to...
on the edge of their seats. You got to draw out the suspense.
No, I keep selecting 2021. I mean 2001. That's my problem.
Numbers are hard.
They are so hard. All right, so actor in leading role that year, Crow won for Gladiator.
Hey.
Javier Bardem was nominated for Before Night Falls.
Don't even know what that is.
Tom Hanks in Castaway. Okay. Ed Harrison, Pollock, and Jeffrey Rush in Quills. A lot of artsiness in that one, yeah.
If that's what you're stuck with, give Hanks his third Oscar for Castaway.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, he literally carries that movie on his back. Or like I said, I would have no problem with Douglas being in there.
Del Toro did win for Traffic again. That's one of my favorite all-time Oscars got it right things.
They did. They nailed it. Hey, I'm talking a lot about Douglas. I'm 100% on board with Del Toro winning.
He beat out Jeff Bridges for The Contender, Willem Dafoe for Shadow of the Vampire, Albert Finney for Aaron Brockovich. So again,
another Soderbergh movie,
and Joaquin Phoenix for Gladiator. So glad Phoenix didn't win for Gladiator. I like Joaquin Phoenix. I would not have been happy with him winning for Gladiator.
I wouldn't have had him winning, but that's not a terrible category. That's again going back to what an insane 2000 Soderbergh had.
I mean, and Julia Roberts won Best Actress.
I know.
For Aaron Brockovich.
So he brought home. He got 2 people Oscars. He won Best Director. Like this is a wild year.
Yeah. So yeah, he won for director and was again 2 of the 5 nominees were him.
That's crazy.
And then Best Picture, Gladiator won.
That's a crime against humanity.
The other nominees were the 2 we said for Soderbergh, Brockovich and Traffic, and then Chocolat and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
The Oscars are just weird, man. Literally any of those movies I think would be better Best Picture winner than Gladiator. That's just absurd to me.
Yeah, I was definitely rooting for Traffic when it happened.
I mean, for crying out loud, that just drives me nuts. Gladiator, come on. Entertaining? Yes. Cool when Russell Crowe is chopping people's heads off with a sword? Yes. Best Picture of the year? No. Absolutely not.
I should say I didn't know this until just now going through it, that Steven have we decided to pronounce his last name, Gagan, did win for best screenplay based on, or what is it, adapted screenplay, basically.
Yeah.
So
they got a lot right
Yeah.
that year, but just the Gladiator thing just has always thrown me off.
yeah, that is a bit perplexing.
That is really perplexing. Yeah.
So people who have listened to both of our episodes this week, you've got 2 recommendations.
Yeah.
See Snatch, it's pure entertainment, as we said. See Traffic, it's heavier,
Yeah.
but it is worth it. It's one of those films that like you watch and you feel like you've watched an important film.
Yeah. An important film that isn't beating you over the head with the fact that it's an important film,
Right.
which is the best compliment I can give it. And just
great performances.
great performances.
Great filmmaking and stylistic choices.
That's what I was going to say. If you want to, if you're not a movie nerd, but you want to understand like what good filmmaking is, Traffic's a great choice, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for joining us to listen to us talk about
fun to go back and watch these
about
movies.
Traffic. We'll do this again. I don't know when.
Hopefully not for a long time,
Yeah,
because that means we're getting at least movies that we're interested in seeing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we will do it again. We'll return to this at some
yeah.
point this year. We'll do some more 2000s movies. So if you've got any 2000 movies you're just like adamant you want us to talk about, let us know. Maybe we'll pick them.
Absolutely.
Probably not if it's not what we want. We might. I don't know. We say we're pro fans, Andy, but it's really hard to know because our fans don't talk to us.
They don't.
So we don't get to know. I don't get to be tested.
Yeah.
I'm
I have
for
a
'em or
couple
not.
people that'll talk to me
Yeah.
and engage with me, but when we say we want feedback, we're not kidding. We really do.
Yeah, we really
We
do.
would love it.
All right. So give us that feedback and join us next time.
Absolutely.